Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
What if the brain could be trained like a musical instrument? Or what if timing, not intelligence, was the missing link behind focus, memory, coordination, anxiety, and learning struggles? Could a simple beat help reorganize the human nervous system? Today, we explore a fascinating neurotraining system that has been used with children with attention deficit difficulties, athletes seeking peak performance. Just remember, if you're exercising, you want more peak performance, this is something you want to do. Stroke recovery patients, trauma survivors, individuals with neurological conditions, and even professionals looking to sharp cognitive precision. Boy, I think we could all use some of that. Well, welcome to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, and today's topic, interactive metronome, the purposes, techniques, and outcomes. This is one of the most fascinating intersections between neuroscience, rhythm, neuroplasticity, sensory integration, and human performance. And by the end of today's program, you may begin looking at rhythm, timing, and human brain in a completely different way. I know I did when I read this because it's something that I did with all of my kids, and it helped them with their IQ, actually. But before we begin, I want to make something very clear. Interactive metronome training is not magic. It's not hypnosis. It's not mind control. And it is not designed to replace medical professional care. Instead, interactive metronome, often called IM, is considered neurotiming intervention system, a complementary, holistic option. It was designed to improve timing precision, sensory processing, motor coordination, attention regulation, processing speed, executive functioning, and communication between brain regions. You can tell I've been doing it. And at its core, this system works on one foundational concept. The human nervous system depends heavily on timing. Every thought, every movement, every emotional reaction, every coordinated action depends on timing. Your heartbeat has timing. Breathing has timing. Speech has timing. Walking has timing. Eye movements have timing. Attention has timing. Even social interaction relies on timing. Matter of fact, the brain itself functions through synchronized electrical signaling. And that's according to Leisman and his colleagues in 2010. When timing becomes inefficient, dysregulation can begin to appear with focus, learning, emotional regulation, movement, coordination, speech, memory, and behavior. Interactive metronome training attempts to strengthen the brain's internal timing networks, such as repetition, feedback, rhythm, and sensory motor engagement. Today we're going to discuss what is it? Interactive metronome, how it works, the science behind timing and neuroplasticity, who uses it, techniques involved, possible outcomes, limitations, and why rhythm may play a larger role in human healing than many people realize. So, welcome my guest, Nurse Peggy Smith. She has a show on Saturday mornings at 1 p.m. Eastern called The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. And she always brings things down to home for me. So I do a lot of the scientific, but then she brings it right into your living room. Hi, Peggy. How are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful, Gloria. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure.
Oh, always with me, having you here. Thank you. So actually, Peggy, you are licensed or you're certified in this? correct?
I am
Interactive
certified in
metronome?
this, yes. But I was first introduced to it after I had had couple multiple concussions in a short period of time from automobile accidents.
Mm,
Uh, and a psychologist, actually, a holistic psychologist, had introduced me to it. And she thought it was something I could relate to because I play instruments, and she was doing it with her geriatric patients. I wasn't geriatric back then, but it was really very helpful. I was amazed, because, like you said, everything is a sense of timing, and if your timing is off, uh, and we've talked on other shows, Gloria, about binaural beats meditation, which is kind of a similar
mhm,
philosophy. It's
mhm,
accessing parts of your brain that you might not be using, because we know we only use like 10% of our brain anyway, and that's why the neuroplasticity makes it able to regenerate and activate parts of the brain we haven't been using, and that's what interactive metronome does.
mhm. It's so true, actually. I like to ask the audience, anyone out there ever their boss come up to you and say something to you and maybe a little on the curt side, but then walks away and you just didn't react, and later you're like, I should have said that. Well, that's timing. It also helps with that in the professional world. Magnificent. So I'm going to answer this right up front. So what exactly is interactive metronome? Interactive metronome is a computerized timing rhythm-based training. So it's a program, and to participate, the listeners listen to a beat similar to the metronome used in music. The goal is to match physical movements precisely to the beat. Participants, they clap their hands, they tap their feet, they touch sensors, they perform movement patterns or engage in coordinated body exercises. The system then provides immediate feedback, which of course also helps because then you know how well you're doing, regarding timing and accuracy of your movement. Touch this, touch that, at the same time you're doing something else. If the movement is early or late, the participant hears that information instantly. And over time, the nervous system begins refining timing precision. It's kind of like a video game to me. But the exercises may appear simple on the surface, but neurologically, the brain is performing highly complex coordination tasks. They involve auditory processing, motor planning, sequencing, attention regulation, proprioception. I think that's how they say that. Am I saying that right?
Close enough.
Proprioception.
Yeah.
Say it again, please.
You were right.
I
Yeah, you were
was?
close enough to it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not in my typical vocabulary, that word, but sensory integration, cerebral timing, frontal lobe processing. So I imagine this is good for many neurological situations, and executive functioning. There we go again, seeing things. I see things in a network map, and whenever I have a project, bam, it's all there. Timing, everything. I'm really fortunate, but this is the type of thing I've been doing my whole life. I believe very strongly in using this, especially on young children and toddlers, to help give them a boost up with learning. So the brain must hear the beat, predict the timing, coordinate the movement, executive movement, and execute the movement, receive the feedback, and adjust timing. They also need to repeat it rapidly. The continuous loop activates multiple brain regions simultaneously. So this timing really does matter. Most people think brain function is only about intelligence, but neuroscience shows that timing efficiency may be equally important. The nervous system is essentially an electrical communication network, and that was in many reports, especially Merzenich in 2013. He showed that, he proved that in his research. Signals travel continuously between neurons, sensory systems, motor systems, emotional centers, and cognitive processing regions. So wouldn't it be great if we could all just process things much faster? And I know some people, they have a hearing processing delay, like they'll hear something but not recognize the words, and then they have to wait and think for a few seconds to know what was said. This would also help with that. I mean, I think you had mentioned when I told you, Peggy, that I did this with my children, but I didn't know what they called it back then. We're talking in the 80s, 90s, But I used to massage their legs, and I used to do beats with things on their legs, their feet, and touch their feet to their face, and all these other things. I used to do so many types of things like this. But I think you had mentioned you did this with your children too?
Well, I did, but I was also 45 years ago, before I was a registered nurse, I was a special education teacher.
Mm.
And I taught children with cerebral palsy and traumatic brain injury. Uh, and we didn't have the terms autism, but the equivalent of people, excuse me, that today would be considered on the spectrum. And you have a lot of enthusiasm about this idea, and but when you have a brain injury, I want to point out that one of the frustrations is that you're easily frustrated. Um, and especially with the elderly, maybe trying to recover from a stroke, or even maybe an adolescent who knows what he used to be able to do it. Uh, I am a musician. I play different instruments, so that something like that should have been easy for me. But after even a temporary brain injury, there you have to like relearn things. Like sometimes you have to relearn to walk after a stroke, or and with children often that are born with these disabilities, it does improve their behavior. But I know one of my frustrations actually as a special ed teacher, it was a residential school for children, and Monday through Friday we got the timing of how to pick up the fork and get the food to your mouth before it fell on your lap,
Mm.
and then they would go home for the weekend, and Monday morning we'd have to start all over.
Right,
So,
right.
uh, but if somebody is very analytical, this might actually be a little bit harder, I think, because you're trying to beat the game, or master it the way you intellectually. When you have a brain injury, you still know how to do the things you did before, but your body's just not getting the messages. There's some short circuits.
Yep.
Um, and this is really a fascinating area. It's similar to back in the 80s. If children skip the step of crawling, and there's a theory
Mhm.
that you might end up having learning disabilities if you didn't grow up, with sitting up, crawling in a certain sequence. So there was the Institute for Human Potential here in Philadelphia, which taught parents and caregivers how to pattern the crawling experience. And we would like
Yeah, I
manually
remember
teach
that.
the baby. And it's
Mhm.
because your brain needs to learn things in a sequence to get to a higher level. You're going
Create
to have the
neuralistic
training wheels
pathway.
on your bicycle until you get the timing, and, for their feet,
Mhm.
the pedals to go all at the same time while you're still looking where you're going. 'Cause I remember you finally have your steering wheels, your dad's holding the bike and lets you go, and you forgot to look and you run into the wall or the bush or something. Those
Yep.
were joys of childhood,
Went
70s and
into the
80s.
car. Yeah.
But
So,
go ahead.
okay, I'm sorry. So anyways, you can use this on children, obviously. You can see a practitioner who does this, but it's for everybody. And so it's also used, an athlete can use it for physical strength, but may have a delayed reaction time. This is something that may help with that. Trauma survivors and have cognitive disabilities or capabilities, but nervous system dysregulation affects coordination and focus. So this may help that. A person recovering from a stroke may struggle reconnecting movement time pathways. This is done very commonly in the medical systems for this particular specific thing. And I'm really happy to see that. But remember, check with your medical professional. Your choice who you see, it's up to you. And it's a good thing. So recovering from stroke, the kind of reconnecting movement timing pathways. Timing influences reaction speed, attention span, speech fluency, as well as emotional regulation, balance, working memory, and behavioral control. So we're going to continue with this and then move on right after the commercial. Stay right there. You're not going to want to miss this because we get more in depth on what this can do, even for your own cognitive abilities. We'll be right back.
Mike Zoric, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. We're discussing interactive metronome purposes, techniques, and outcomes. By the way, we would love to continue to bring you these exciting programs, things that maybe you're not used to hearing about. So please like, share, and subscribe. We need that to help us continue to do this work. So let's get right back here. Interactive metronome training may involve coordination among several neurological systems. That includes things in the cerebellum associated with timing, coordination, motor learning, rhythm, movement. Can you imagine athletes? My gosh, this would really help. The prefrontal cortex zone associated with executive function, attention, decision-making, impulse control, and organization. Boy, I could really use that when I work in an office again. So basal ganglia associated with movement regulation. I mean, even habit formation, motor initiation, and timing consistency as well. The corpus callosum helps communication between brain hemispheres. Auditory processing systems responsible for interpreting rhythm and sound timing. Even sensory motor integration systems, coordination of the body movement with sensory information. This is why IM, by the way, that is the acronym that they use. This is why IM is often considered a whole brain timing intervention. It's fantastic. So let's move on now to interactive, the purposes and techniques in this one, purposes and applications. So this year we will be having Peggy tune in with us because of some of the topic area. The first topic area is attention and executive functioning. Love to give this to everybody who works on my team. One of the most commonly discussed applications involves is many clinicians observe that some individuals struggle, not because they lack intelligence, but because the nervous system struggles with timing, sequencing, and processing coordination. Interactive metronome training has been explored with individuals with attention difficulties, like ADD, executive functioning challenges, processing speed concerns, and organizational deficits. Executive functioning includes several higher order cognitive processes associated with self-regulation and adaptive behavior. And that was shown with Diamond in 2013's research. It discussed all the things such as planning, working memory, task shifting, impulse control, sustained attention, emotional regulation. When timing improves, some individuals report improvements in focus, task completion, reading fluency, classroom engagement, listening skills, and self-regulation. The theory is that synchronized timing itself may help improved neural efficiency. And that's with practice. Now, not all the results are the same for everybody. Isn't that right, Peggy? This is something that everybody as an individual.
And there's no one typical type of client or patient that would be using this. There are not a lot of practitioners out here, but it's important. This is not something you can just buy the video version and do it with a, because you wear headphones on it so that there's no distractions, outward noises. You know, the method, the beats in the melody type thing. It all goes directly into your brain because you're wearing the over the head, not even earbuds. You're wearing regular over the head earphones, so you can hear it without more distractions. And everybody's going to react differently. One good thing about this technique is that it does not interact with any medications that you might be on. Um,
Yay.
if you're on mind-altering drugs recreationally, you'll have a harder time coordinating yourself. But
Yeah, I'm
this is
sure.
really one of the safest and very practical ways of reactivating what you may have lost in an accident, or even people from birth that have deficits. Uh,
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to go into athletic performance. So this part's for the athletes out there and all those that just want to exercise more and things like that. So athletes actually became interested in timing training because high-level performance depends heavily on reaction speed, motor coordination, rhythm, balance, visual timing, and rapid decision making. A fraction of the second matters. Professional sport programs have explored timing-based training programs of this type to potentially improve hand-eye coordination, movement efficiency, swing timing. Ooh, that used to be a problem, but then I did some of this, and now when I went to the batting cage last, I did so well, I was like shocked, my jaw dropped. But the reaction precision is important, agility it also helps with, and motor consistency. Think about baseball. A hitter may have less than half a second to interpret pitch, speed, and location. Timing is everything. The same is true for tennis, martial arts, football, hockey, basketball, dance, gymnastics, and music performance. Rhythm and coordinated timing influence performance quality overall. So this is a topic next here. We're going to do one on stroke rehabilitation and neurological recovery. I think you mentioned a few things on there, but timing systems may also play a role in neurological rehabilitation. Some rehabilitation specialists have explored interactive metronome training for stroke recovery, traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's, movement issues, coordination deficits, and motor training. After neurological injury, the brain often attempts to create new pathways and neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity itself refers to the brain's ability to reorganize and adapt through experience and repetition. That's Merjenic 2013 who actually defined that. So what has your experience been? Have you seen stroke patients go through some of these programs?
Absolutely, and it's important to have a professional that's trained with this because you might not be able to, you're not going to go with the same pace with every patient. Everybody's individual. So a professional would know if there's a level of frustration and increasing anxiety that would just prevent, means you have to take things a little bit slower for some, everybody's got their own timetable. When you're talking about the athletes, many football players are trained in ballet because ballet is a way of coordinating. And, we don't talk a lot about muscle memory, but, if you have a keypad on your door, you don't usually think of the numbers. Your finger knows which buttons to push. Um, I wore glasses for, I guess, 60 some years. I don't, these are blue blockers now. You don't need glasses
Yay.
anymore. But every night before I go to bed, my last thing I do is my hand reaches up, take glasses off, and there's no glasses on my face. But that was a muscle memory. And by accessing things that are dormant or temporarily damaged, this helps retrieve those muscle memories. And that's how you get the coordination back. Uh, and, but timing is important. You can't clep this experience like you do in
No cliff notes.
You don't have cliff notes anymore anyway with AI. But you can't. There's no shortcuts. Everybody's body, just like when you're having a baby and 9 months are here, and maybe the baby should have been here yesterday, but he thinks he has another week to go. The timing is important, and we don't have that much control over the timing, but the universe does.
So I think a lot of this, though, is dealing with those timing exercises, because they would encourage motor synchronization, sensory integration, movement sequencing, and neural communication efficiency. This is all proven, by the way. We will have references placed in the comments after this is posted for reruns, okay? Just letting you know if you want to see the references, it's there. So it does not mean, though, that system cures neurological disease. I just want to accent that here. This is an option, a complementary alternative program that may assist with different things. They are using it in medical communities today, especially for stroke victims, and athletes are using it all over the globe for retraining and for after injuries. So repetitive coordinated training, though, may support rehabilitation efforts in certain individuals. So consider that. So here's
Well,
another
it's
area
kind of
that
like when you're a child taking your piano lessons and, you're playing chopsticks over and over and over, you know. Um,
metronome. Yeah.
you have the metronome, now you don't need
Mhm.
to buy those metronomes unless are old-fashioned and like to look at them and hear, but because now you have it on your phone, an app. You don't need a guitar tuner anymore, that's on your phone. Um, but this is something that's really not an electronic tool. It's like listening to a Walkman. I almost forgot that term.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that's what you're listening to it. It's accessing your brain directly, and it's retraining your brain by accessing parts of the brain that weren't damaged in the accident or whatever is causing the issue. Um, I remember there was a young boy, his name was Philip. I met him when he was 5 at the school that I was at. He had fallen out of a tree. He'd been abused and was escaping his abuser, hiding in a tree. He fell, landed on his head. And actually, I met him when he was 13, I'm sorry, but it happened when he was 5. He had been totally nonverbal. And by lots of repetition and physical and verbal things on my part as a special ed teacher, he
Mhm.
said his first sentence to me like 8 years after he had lost the ability to do that.
Mm.
And it was, I like cookies. First, he did it in sign language, and then, the words came out. And, it's so rewarding to see somebody that, reaches a milestone like that. We all just hugged and cried. And every time he saw me, he would sign, he likes cookies. I had to remember to bring cookies to work every day.
Don't
Um,
forget the cookies. Yeah.
Monster, yes. But, we learn things by repetition, even if we don't realize it.
Right.
I'm a competitive chess player, and over the years, I've read lots of chess books, learned lots of maneuvers and patterns. My first 30 games in a game, I'm not even looking at the board. I just know what I'm going to do reflexively, and I'm using that part of the brain that if I'd had a stroke, perhaps it would be a lot difficult. In fact, during my concussion, I wasn't able to play chess and I wasn't able to do Sudoku, two of my favorite hobbies. But with IM, that's, as I got better, that I was able to do that again. And, that was very rewarding for me. I was a little skeptical because, I'm a nurse and, we have our own ideas and it seemed a little outlandish. This was like 10 years ago. But it's very much evidence-based, proven and used in all areas now, and it's very successful.
I'm glad you mentioned evidence-based because Taught in 2005 discovered that it can be used in speech and language applications. He found that speech itself is rhythmic and highly dependent on timing and auditory sequencing because he's discovered it was improved timing, auditory sequencing, motor coordination. Gee, I could use that right now. Breath regulation and rapid processing. Speech language specialists have explored this rhythmic timing for interventions for speech fluency, auditory processing, language timing, articulation, coordination, and communication sequencing. Again, this area continues to be researched, but it reinforces an important concept. Human communication is deeply rhythmic. So we have another area here, trauma, anxiety, nervous system regulation. We are going to continue with that when we get back after the commercial break. We'll do the trauma, and then we will also look more into why do repetition and feedback matter, and what role does neuroplasticity play in human adaptation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. We are discussing interactive metronome, purpose, techniques, and outcomes. This is for athletes. This is for special ed needs students. This is for the average everyday person even. There's so many things that it helps with. Right now, we're going to talk about trauma, anxiety, and nervous system regulation. So it's a very fascinating section here. Trauma can dysregulate the nervous system and alter autonomic balance, attentional processing, and physiological regulation. That was according to Rati in 2008, and all of his research studies. References will be placed at the end of this program in the comments section when it's posted. So it also can help with chronic stress. So autonomic balance, attention, emotional regulation, which is very important when we're talking about central nervous system, reaction patterns and sensory sensitivity, and physiological timing systems. Perfect. Autism people, they can always use this too. Traumatized nervous systems often become hypervigilant. The body may remain in fight, flight, freeze, or chronic stress activation. I've got a lot of experience with this with PTS veterans, and yes, it's there, it's true, and this does help. Rhythmic-based interventions have long existed across human history. Think about drumming, chanting, synchronized movement, marching, breath pacing, rhythmic prayer, meditative repetition, dancing, and ceremonial rhythm. I even remember marching in preschool. They'd have us marching in circles. Why? Because rhythm influences the nervous system and may help regulate neural synchronization and sensory integration. This was shown by Taut in 2005 and Trainer in 2015. It's all research-based information. Some researchers believe rhythmic synchronization may help regulate neural timing and autonomic balance. This does not mean interactive metronome is a trauma cure, but timing and rhythm may influence sensory regulation, attention stabilization, body awareness, and nervous system organization. So it helps quite a bit. Not to say it helps everybody, but I've not seen a person where it didn't help at least somewhat, a little bit, So
Well,
let's
I'd like
look
to
at
point out,
techniques.
Gloria, if I may,
Mhm.
when especially with neurodivergent children, we've all seen the child, maybe lived with them, who finds comfort in rocking back and forth. It's that motion, the rhythm, the pattern that they've somehow naturally in the universe learned that that's a comfort thing for them when they're stressed
Yeah,
out or don't know how to process what's going on around them. And
rocking the baby.
this is not designed or developed to be any kind of cure. It's just to restore function, to get closer to whatever the person's baseline is, and everybody has a different baseline. When you think of the synchronized ice skaters in the Olympics and the the
Mhm.
with that's what comes to mind, and we're all watching with bated breath, hoping when they twirl around they're not going to fall flat on the ice. But we're almost putting ourselves in their body, almost hoping that we can catch them if they fall before they hit the ground. It's just a
Yeah,
human nature type thing. But the goal here is not to cure anything. We're all dealt with the cards that we're born with, but it doesn't mean that it has to limit us from functioning to the best of our optimal
right.
abilities.
So this is an important section here. We're going to talk about techniques and training methods, and Peggy actually has some of those that information in her own head. So I'll go through some of the specifics, and then we'll ask her about it. Okay, structure of a typical session. It's an interactive metronome session, usually involves headphones, rhythmic, auditory beats, bodily movement tasks, sensors or motion detection, immediate timing feedback, which I'm glad it has feedback, and the participant intends to synchronize movement precisely with the auditory beat. Movements may include hand clapping, toe tapping, alternate arm movements, crossing midline exercises, balance tasks, sequencing patterns, standing coordination drills, or complex movement combination. The system actually measures timing accuracy in milliseconds, allowing extremely precise feedback regarding sensory motor timing performance. That's according to Schaefer and colleagues in 2001. Milliseconds, the level of precision allows participants to train subtle timing control. That fascinates me because I just think of all the things we used to do when we were younger, tap, rub, tap, and rub and tap, different things we used to do to develop our brains. And the timing is so important in this. I noticed when I saw pictures, I saw the mats, and they were watching a screen and touching the screen with the rhythm and the beat, the different pictures. And so they were listening with headphones. And is that how it actually works, Peggy?
That's part of it, but it's also part of recovery from any brain injury, whether it's a stroke or an athletic injury or a car accident, like my case. One of the tests or the exercises I had to go through, in addition to working with the psychologist who used it, privately one-on-one to help increase some of the skills that I had, and she was able to modulate if I was frustrated. In the beginning, I was very resistant because when your emotional regulation is off after a brain injury, I thought it was stupid. I was above this stupid game. And then I had to go to the physical rehab and discovered they had a great big wall with flashing buttons. And my idea was I'd hit it as soon as the light blinked. I didn't know that that's how they were determining when I could drive again, because that tests your reflex. And if your reflexes are delayed and you're in physical therapy like that, you may not be driving for a while until they feel that you're safe. But I'm one of those people that really needs to understand why I'm doing it. And at that point, no matter what you said, I'm not sure I would understand the whole picture. But to me, it seemed very dumb for me. I can, I don't do this, but then I could relate it to when I was learning how to play my flute. In the flute, you're not looking at your fingers; they're over here on the side. So again, there's your muscle memory, and I was able to relate it to different experiences in my earlier life that, okay, things I did automatically, and someone has a stroke, things they did automatically. They may not remember how to dial a telephone or, ring the doorbell even. They don't understand that. You might try to brush your teeth after you've already, drank the water to rinse. You might rinse your mouth first because you forgot the sequence of putting the toothpaste on the brush, brushing your teeth, then rinsing your mouth. So
That's a thought. I mean, I've done some goofy things like that in the past. I'm sure our listeners have too. Oh, I should write
so
it down.
it really does take patience for the practitioner, patience for the client who's trying to increase these skills. And they used to say no video games for a period of time after a concussion, and now they're using all kinds of video games that because that's the way the electronic things work. But this really has been a fast, personal experience for me, and I knew right away the whole population of my former type of students that I used to teach that it was just really exciting to see them make little milestones.
Yeah, and what's really nice though about this metronome, is that Merzenich in 2013 he found that adapted feedback loops reinforce the neural efficiency over time because you get your answers right away. Where am I reacting too slowly? Where am I reacting too quickly because I am anticipating it? Or interactive metronome systems often provide immediate auditory feedback, and that's perfect for athletes too. Am I too early? Am I too late? Perfectly synchronized. Yay! This creates rapid learning loop. The nervous system constantly adjusts itself based on incoming information. This process can easily strengthen motor planning, attention regulation, predictive timing, sensory integration, and cognitive flexibility. The brain essentially practices synchronization repeatedly. So repetition in neuroplasticity, one of the most important discoveries in neuroscience, because it demonstrates the brain's ability to adapt structurally and functionally through repeated experience. That's Merzenich again in 2013. Amazing scientist, love it. I hope he keeps pushing that stuff out there because we can continually use it. The brain is not completely fixed. It adapts. Repeated activity strengthens neural pathways through repetitive activation, reinforcement of the neural circuitry. This is often summarized as neurons that fire together, wire together. Repeated timing exercises may reinforce communication and the efficiency between brain regions. This is similar. How? Well, musicians improve timing, dancers improve coordination, athletes improve reflexes, meditators improve attention control. See, everybody can use it, and language learners improve fluency. Repetition changes the nervous system. The brain adapts to what it practices repeatedly. And bilateral coordination, cross-lateral movements, well, going back and forth and all around in the brain and everything. Many IM exercises involve bilateral coordination. This means using both sides of the body and the brain in coordinated patterns.
Well,
Cross-lateral.
the exercises they actually had me doing therapy. I had to cover one eye and do it, and then cover the other eye. And I didn't understand, because
Mm-hmm.
two parts of your brain, and
Nice.
brain's
Nice.
not
Back and
communicating
forth.
one side to the other. But that's how the professionals were measuring my progress.
Yeah.
And I was complaining in the beginning of it. I don't need to do these these dumb things. And he says, and I said, well, why do I have occupational therapy? I dress myself, And the occupational therapist said, why were you holding the rail as we walked down the hall? And I thought, oh. And then I said, well, I certainly, I can read all that. And she says, why do I need speech therapy? What's wrong with my speech? I said to her. She said, speech therapy is the one that's going to tell you when you're safe to drive again. And at that point, I didn't understand what was happening to me. That it was the very beginning of therapy, but I had enough common sense. I better keep my mouth shut until I learn this game and
I
understand
think
what I'm doing.
you were right on target with that.
Yeah.
The
So
cross-lateral movements. Yeah.
you don't realize, because you do it unconsciously or subconsciously, and reflexively. But if you've had an injury of any kind, or medications caused, you've had operations where maybe part of your brain is removed, they can reprogram you almost to use other parts of your brain.
Cross-lateral movements can actually right hand to left knee, and like I was saying, tapping and rubbing and then switching,
Those are really good.
alternating patterns, coordinating, sequencing, rhythm transitions. These activities stimulate the communication between hemispheres of the brain, and brain constantly integrates movement, sensory input, balance, spatial awareness, and timing precision. The more integrated the systems become, the more efficient the performance can become. So attention, endurance, cognitive fatigue, this can be used by everybody in the work environments and athletes. Interestingly enough, is some individuals become mentally fatigued during timing exercises. Why? Because sustained attention itself requires neurological energy. So you can build up your you may be able to build up your neurological energy. Remember, this doesn't always work for everybody, but it's quite successful normally. The brain must continuously maintain focus, predict timing, inhibit distractions, correct movement, and process feedback. This can become cognitively demanding. Over time, individuals develop improved attention endurance. Much like physical exercise, training muscles, cognitive repetition may strengthen attentional networks, just like much of what I'm doing right here. So the role of rhythm in human biology. Let's step back for a minute. The human body is rhythmic by nature, functioning through coordinated biological oscillations and timing systems. Research was done on this in 2015 by Trainer. So we live through biological rhythms, such as heartbeats, breathing rhythms, sleep, wake cycles, speech, emotions, hormones are all on cycles as well. But We do have to take another commercial break. When we return, we'll discuss outcomes, limitations, realistic expectations, and the future of timing-based neuroscience. And we'll ask an important question. Could rhythm become one of the most overlooked aspects of human wellness? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. Today's discussion has explored the relationship between timing, rhythm, neuroplasticity, and human performance. The interactive metronome, purposes, techniques, and outcomes. Now let's explain outcomes, cautions, and future possibilities. This is interesting. Individuals participating in interactive metronome programs have reportedly improvement areas such as focus, coordination, balance, process speed, reading fluency, attention regulation, reaction timing, organization, listening skills, and movement efficiency. I think everybody can use listening skills, but some practitioners reported improved academic engagement, athletic performance, self-regulation, motor coordination, and cognitive endurance. However, outcomes vary. Every nervous system is unique. Check with your medical professional, see if this is something that's right for you. The realistic expectations is very important to maintain realistic ones. Interactive metronome is not considered a miracle cure. It is a training system. Some individuals respond strongly, kind of like Sudoku in my eyes, but this is a little more in-depth. Others respond moderately. Some notice minimal changes. Variables may include neurological condition, consistency of practice, severity of impairment, age, sleep quality, stress levels, nutrition, coexisting medical conditions, and therapeutic integration. Why do I feel like I'm saying the side effects of some drug that we're advertising? I don't know, but no single intervention works identically for everybody. That is the important thing. And there are integrative approaches. Certain clinicians can use it for occupational therapy, speech therapy, cognitive rehabilitation, physical therapy, behavioral strategies, mindfulness training, sleep optimization, nutritional support, exercise, and nervous system regulation practices. This is being used in the medical community in all these areas. The future of health may increasingly involve integrative models just like this, not simply treating symptoms, but improving system coordination. So the emerging science of brain timing, neuroscience that is, continues exploring timing networks, neurosynchronization, oscillatory brain activity, sensory integration, neuroplasticity, and rhythmic stimulations. Increasingly, McGrew 2008 found that Cognitive is not only about information, but also about timing, synchronization of neural communication networks. So it's also about timing. Keep that in mind. Efficient timing improves communication, and communication efficiency influences performance. Also in the work environment, this concept may eventually reshape how we approach learning, rehabilitation, trauma recovery, performance optimization, aging, and cognitive resilience. So the human rhythm is beyond technology. It's something much more deeper. Long before computers exist, humans synchronized through music, drumming, chanting. We talked about this, even prayer and storytelling. Perhaps, ancient cultures recognize something intuitively that neuroscience is beginning to measure. Rhythm organizes human experience, and maybe healing sometimes begins with the nervous system and rediscovery of coherence. So if you want more information about this topic, Peggy, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you could go to my email. It's notjusthypnosis@gmail.com, and I will respond and direct you, for practitioners that are in your area. Um, and it's timing, but it's realistic expectations, and it's patience, being kind to yourself. And sometimes you don't get the breakthrough instantly, but 6 weeks later, all of a sudden you can do something you couldn't do 6 weeks earlier while you were beginning the therapies. And your brain had its own timing of when it was appropriate for you to get it all together. Uh, so that's this is not a miracle. It's not a video game. It's based on just the way the universe put us on this planet, using basic simples. The thunderstorm comes, and then we know the rainbow comes, and it's all timing. And we're just kind of watching the show here in the universe.
Yeah. So today we explored what interactive metronome actually is, how the timing affects the nervous system, the role of rhythm in cognitive and movement, neuroplasticity and repetition, applications and attention, athletes, rehabilitation and regulation, and the fascinating relationship between timing and human performance, whether through technology, music, breath, meditation, movement, or structured neurological training. The nervous system appears deeply responsive to rhythm, repetition, and synchronized sensory input. And that was proven by Todt in 2004 in his research. So perhaps one of the greatest lessons is that the body is not random. It is coordinated, it's rhythmic, and it is constantly adapting. Thank you for joining Nurse Peggy and I here today. Thank you, Peggy, for being on my show. Always a delight. And you are watching Medical
Yeah, it was lots
Intuitive
of fun.
Insights. Yeah. And if you're enjoying today's program, please like, share, subscribe, and continue exploring the connection between science, wellness, and human potential. Until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your nervous system, and remember, sometimes healing begins one rhythm at a time. There, but for the grace of God, go I, and please expand your scientific knowledge for your human body's sake. Have a good one. Take care.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.